So imagine during these COVID times, you have some friends saying that keeping people healthy is most important, and other friends that say the risk of losing jobs and businesses means that the economy is most important. And they turn to you and they say, "What do you think?" What would you say? Another scenario. One of your colleagues says, "We need to push people and get this project done." And another colleague says, "You must be joking. People are already exhausted. If we push them any harder, some may quit." Again, they turn to you. They say, "What would you do?" What would you say to them? If you know that the answer to those two scenarios is not one or the other, but both, then you understand the dynamics of polarities or interdependent pairs. After all, we cannot have a healthy economy without healthy people, and we can always find a way to get things done and still take care of ourselves and others while we were doing it. Now, wherever you are right now in your current understanding of polarities, we're here to explore how do we get better at seeing and managing polarities as a way of life. It's a little bit like these pictures. You may have seen these before, but on the left, there's a picture that you may see two faces and a vase. On the right, a woman and a saxophone player. We can learn to see both, we can get better at seeing both, and we can get better at seeing both at the same time. So anytime there are interdependent pairs, we want to see them both together, like health and economy, so we can achieve optimal outcomes. Now, besides seeing individual polarities, there's also a field of study of polarity thinking, and a number of books have been written about it, led by Barry Johnson. And actually, the very first documented polarity, and the one that is considered the mother and father of polarities, is yin and yang. So while yin qualities are more intuitive and feeling and supported, yang qualities are more rational and thinking and challenging. Now, we each need a balance of yin and yang to be effective, but not necessarily 50-50, but each of us has a unique blend to help us be effective in our journeys in life. So what is polarity thinking? Polarity thinking is honoring the genius of the and to serve a higher purpose when there are interdependent pairs, rather than getting stuck in the versus or the or. Many people believe that polarity thinking is one of the best tools we have to make sense of the complexities that we see around us. What's really interesting about polarities, one of the many interesting things about polarities, is that they exist at many, many levels of the system. Actually, most polarities exist at all levels or multiple levels. Some exist at certain levels more than others. Let's go through some examples. So each of us deal with being, for example, focused and relaxed. When we talk with other people, we advocate and we inquire. Teams all deal with task and relationship. All organizations in the world, I think, struggle with doing centralization and decentralization. And at the outer level, we get part and whole, which could be like a country being part of a greater whole, like a global organization like the United Nations or the World Health Organization. So again, polarities run up and down all the levels, and what we want to do is when we notice them, we want to put them together, get the upsides of both poles so we can achieve the best results. Before we can manage the polarities, first thing is to see them so we know the difference between a problem to be solved and a polarity to be managed. So let's do a little seeing polarities exercise. So you see the two columns. Each word on the left has a corresponding word on the right, which may seem like an opposite, but it is a polarity. So let's look at the matches. Now, personally, all of us deal with being optimistic and realistic, active and rested, When we partner with other people, we have candor and diplomacy, as well as challenge and support. Change and stability is one of those polarities that runs up and down all the levels. We certainly see it play out in organizations. And freedom and responsibility, again, all levels, and we see it clearly in societies and countries. Now, again, when you look at these pairs, they may seem like opposite. Obviously, they're polarities for us to play with. And it's a really good start to see them. It doesn't mean it's easy to manage them, but at least it gives us hope. Otherwise, we may end up even more polarized. So when you see a pair, an interdependent pair, put them together, how can they integrate for an optimal outcome? That's the point here. Now, there's many different ways to talk about polarities, but seeing as I grew up in New York, in the US, and I've been living here in Singapore for almost 30 years, share some examples from that perspective. When I first started to travel to this part of the world, the first one that struck me was candor and diplomacy. In New York, maybe some of you have been there and noticed this, people tend to be very direct and very open. And then when I started facilitating workshops in this part of the world, I saw that being diplomatic and polite seemed a lot more important. At the time, I didn't really understand polarities or polarity thinking, but I did wonder, how can we get the best of both worlds? How can we be open and diplomatic? So I started to introduce this idea into workshops, and it was really amazing what happened. So in Asia, this part of the world, groups started to talk about issues they had never talked about before. It was really amazing. And when I went back to the US, I then started to introduce this idea, and groups were talking about very difficult issues and being quite polite while they were doing it. So it was like, wow, so simple and yet so powerful. After traveling to this part of the world for work for a few years, I ended up amazingly living in Singapore from early 1993. The next one that struck me was around parenting. We'll call it challenge and support. In the US, parents tend to lead on the support pole. So no matter what happens, it's like, it's okay, mommy and daddy love you. And then in Singapore, I came to see what I call the 99 syndrome, that even scoring 99 out of 100 marks was not good enough. And it occurred to me again that something's not right. Neither way of parenting seems all that effective. Although I'm now getting more and more encouraged by how parents are learning when to challenge their kids, when to support their kids, and actually when to do both. And may we all have the wisdom to know when the people in our life could use a nudge and when they can use a hug, or again, maybe both. Another one that struck me was freedom and responsibility. In the US, freedom is emphasized, and here in Singapore, collective responsibility is emphasized. And over the last year, we've seen that play out in mask wearing. In the US, you have many people say, I have the freedom to not wear a mask. And here in Singapore and Asia, mask wearing is quite the norm. Now, when it comes to mask wearing, it's quite easy to see which pole would be best to lean on, but it's not always so simple. Years ago, I was at a museum that had an interactive exhibit, and we were all given a voting device, something like this. And we role-played members of a town council, and we had to vote when a group would apply for a license for like a gathering or a parade. And when groups with very controversial views applied for a license, it really put this polarity to the test. Do we go for freedom of speech, or do we go for being responsible for the collective? Quite difficult. Now, those are a few polarities that I noticed were managed differently between, in US, New York, and here in Singapore. And of course, there's many more polarities in all different kinds of contexts. But the big, bold idea here is that understanding polarities can change our lives and our world. And I'd like to think that once you see this, you cannot unsee it. So when you notice polarities showing up inside of you, like, for example, being trusting and being skeptical, or being planful and being flexible, you want to make sure that you blend them, otherwise you use one pole too much, and it might be unhealthy. Notice conversations that you're part of where a polarity surfaces, like data sharing or data privacy, socialism or capitalism, as they're both actually interdependent pairs. So when you notice this, you can bring it up in the group and explore how to bring those poles together, how to get the best of both worlds to achieve maximum effectiveness. Now, if you do need a reminder about polarities, and you like both tea and coffee, what you can do is you can mix them both together. You go to a coffee shop, you can get yin-yang, or you can do the Western version and put a shot of espresso in a chai tea latte. And it's a nice little mix, a nice little blend. Now, if you've never had that drink before, it may seem a bit odd, but give it a try. It's quite a different and unique flavor. And I can definitely tell you, it is so fun to drink polarities for breakfast. I can tell you that. So, what you might want to do, someday sit down, get yourself a yin-yang or a chai tea, a dirty chai, and explore how you can manage polarities inside yourself, in relationships, across society, so that we can synergize rather than polarize.